Hey there everybody, this is Lee with Creative2xmom, and in this video I'm going to be talking about foster care and adoption. So November is actually National Adoption Month, and this year marks the 3-year anniversary of when we finalized our adoption on my littlest guy, and he was a foster adopted situation as well. And when I hear those words, it can kind of be scary and intimidating. So over the years, I've heard some of the same questions reoccurring over and over again, and I thought I would answer some of those questions for you in case you are searching out if this might be a possibility for your family. So I wrote down some of the most frequently asked questions, and I thought I would go through those with you today. So these more specifically address a foster adopt situation. That's kind of where I'm coming from. And the first one is, how much does it cost to adopt from foster care? Generally, adoption from foster care is 100% free, and that was the case in our situation. There are some extenuating circumstances. If you get into a situation where you need to hire a lawyer, that of course would be a cost for you. If I remember correctly, there were no closing costs on our adoption, but you can get reimbursed for that a lot of times if you have a closing cost with your judge and just court fees. So really the only cost for us was the initial setup, like making sure we had a crib, making sure we had a car seat, buying some clothing and some bottles and some formula. That first month before you get placement, you have some upfront costs, but that was it for us. And there are some programs where you can be reimbursed if you do have costs. And that goes into the next question. Is there any financial assistance available to cover adoption fees? Yes, there is. There are reimbursement programs out there. One of the things that we were told was to keep track of some of the more specific receipts that we had, like fingerprinting. You have to be fingerprinted as a foster parent. So keep that receipt in a special envelope. You can be reimbursed for that. Sometimes you can be reimbursed for court fees. Like I said, there was a small minimal fee that we were then reimbursed on. Sometimes you can be reimbursed for traveling expenses if they're related to court. So there are some financial assistance incentives. Also, as a foster parent, there is of course financial assistance for the child. There is a monthly check, and that money is specifically meant to be spent on the child, whether that is clothing costs, formula, baby food, any type of baby equipment as your child needs a high chair or a new car seat. If you've got older kids, those costs go toward services, special needs services. They go toward extracurricular activities, any type of service or product for the child. That's what that goes toward. Is there financial assistance to help with needs after adoption? Yes, there is. Specifically in my state, it is called an adoption, it's AAP, Adoption Assistance Payment, I want to say, and you can receive furthering continuing financial assistance post-adoption, and that is a negotiated fee that is negotiated between the adoptive parent and the state. I believe, I don't think it's county, I think it's state, that you negotiate that fee upon closing of your adoption. There is some back and forth paperwork that happens there. Who can adopt? There are very little restrictions. You don't have to be married. You don't have to be straight. You don't have to be of a certain race. There are no official age parameters, although I have heard cases where it's been more difficult for older individuals to adopt, but not impossible. I do know of a specific case where that happened with people who were well into their elderly years and were able to complete an adoption. So there are very little restrictions. Are there any income or educational requirements? Nope. You just need to be able to prove that you are financially stable, that you can cover your own bills, and that you will not be using that monthly check to support your household. That monthly check is specifically for that child. So you need to be financially independent. Does that mean you need to be wealthy? No. You just need to be able to cover your bills, sustain your family without that check. Let's see. Let's find a good one. Are family members given priority? Absolutely. Family members are given priority in the case of adoption. The county in which the child is removed will reach out to any family members that they are aware of, and they will go to extended family members. The other thing that may occur if you have a tribal child, so the birth parents are enrolled in a tribe, or if they even say, we are a member of this tribe, then the county has to reach out to that tribal affiliation to see if they want to place the child first. And that child is given priority to be placed within that tribe first. If the tribe relinquishes their rights, or if they cannot find an acceptable home for that child, then it can move on to outside placement. And that can be kind of tricky. We were told early on that there was a chance that one of the parents said, hey, I'm tribal. No proof, no background, but they had to investigate that. And so it can sometimes draw out the process a little bit because there are further checks and balances if you are dealing with an ICWA child. ICWA is Indian Child Welfare Act. So just to be aware, if that's something that you are willing to wait through and to go through all those check marks, then fine. If that's something that you feel like would be too emotionally draining on your family, be aware that that is a possibility. Can I adopt a child that I know through my church? Yes. You still need to go through all the background checks of foster care, all the training, etc., etc. Why are children in foster care? There are a variety of reasons. There are mental health reasons. There are special needs reasons. There are neglect. There is abuse. There is drug abuse. It's kind of all across the board. So many things can happen that would cause a child to go into care. Homelessness, specifically in our county, we had somebody address this, that homelessness is not a cause for going into foster care. So I think that's been one of the myths that I've heard tossed around. That is not a reason that a child is taken from a home. I have heard, this was a question. Somebody was asking that they had heard that lots of kids in the system have quote-unquote special needs. I would say every child in the system has special needs. Every child in the system has endured some sort of trauma. Now, our little guy was taken very, very young, and you could say, well, what was the trauma? He wasn't abused, he wasn't neglected, he wasn't given drugs. But what are you saying? Your child has special needs. I am saying that my son grew in somebody else's stomach, was bonded to someone else, and then was taken away from that bonding experience. And when you study the brain and you study what the brain does, that is a traumatic experience. To be removed from the home under any circumstances causes trauma, and every child in foster care has endured some sort of trauma. So in my opinion, every child in foster care has special needs. Now, does that fall into the category that we all think of? No, it doesn't. But it is something to be aware of, that these children all do have special needs. Some of them have bonding issues that you have to be persistent enough to work with. And some of them have long-term bonding issues that you have to be persistent enough to work with. Find support for yourself so that you can then support your child. Are siblings always adopted together? Unfortunately, no, they are not. In our case, siblings were not adopted together. It takes a very special family, I believe, to adopt siblings together. Some families, when the siblings go into care, there is 4, 5, 6 siblings going into care, and some homes just do not have the beds or the facilities to accommodate that. And unfortunately, that adds another layer of trauma. Imagine being taken from your parents and then being taken from your siblings. It's a very sad situation. So in high demand are families that are willing and able and have the ability to take sibling sets. So if that is you, like you are in high demand and you are doing a huge service to these kids. Where can I find information and training? This has kind of been one of those conversations that's come up a little bit. For us, we went to our county services. However, there are lots of private, I hesitate to call them private, individual adoption companies within the area. So my first thought would be to go to the county of your residence and start seeking out information there. You can also, look around you, just start asking questions of the people around you. You probably will be really surprised. I find this to be an interesting phenomenon. When you think about adoption or you think about foster care, your life will suddenly be filled with people who have done foster care or adopted. Just out of pure, you could call it coincidence, I call it divine intervention. It will just start, these people will start to appear in your life without you even initiating that. So just start asking questions if anybody around you has done anything like that. Is there a support group? Yes, absolutely. The county that we work with has a support group that meets all the time, plus the adoption, we had two separate entities that we worked with, our county for the foster care and an adoption agency for the finalization. And the adoption agency also has a support group that continues. It's all adoptive parents, all adoptive kids, that you can continue to meet with other adoptive parents and say, hey, this was not an issue prior to finalization, and 3 years later this has come up. What do I do with it? Let's see. How long does it take to get licensed to adopt? And I think I will stop here. It varies. It varies by agency, and it can vary by county. I know that within California, and California's huge, keep that in mind, but I have heard many stories of people who come from other counties who were licensed in a different county, and either the process was super short, 6 weeks, no big deal, or people who come from other counties where they're like, 6 months, we did this, this, and this, and they wanted to know everything about us. I feel like our county fell somewhere in the middle. There were fingerprints to get that taken care of. Of course, the financial stuff. There's a very thorough psychological background questionnaire evaluation. You meet with a lot of people. Be very prepared to have your personal life invaded. You will have no personal space anymore. And then there was a lot of classes. If you doubled up on classes, you could finish them in about 3 months. I drew mine out because I had little ones at home and I had people taking care of my kids in the evening. So I kind of drew mine out. Mine did take about 6 months to complete. So it kind of varies by county. I would say if you want more specifics, definitely check in with your county agency or a more privatized agency within your town. So I hope that answers a few of your questions about foster and adoption. It can be kind of a scary road once you head down that road, but I'm telling you, it is so well worth it. Even if you just go into it to become foster parents and you don't plan on adopting, it is very much so a rewarding experience, and you will get so much more out of it than you could ever put into it. The blessings are tenfold. So happy National Adoption Month, you guys. If you have any more questions, would you leave them in the comments down below, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.